If you're someone who likes to pinpoint who is the problem when something's gone wrong, here's a little story. So on a no gales forecast, black night, we headed out on a yacht from Wellington Harbour up to Gisborne. And as we rounded the corner of the North Island to begin travelling up, the wind freshened. And by 2 o'clock in the morning we were surging up 6-metre swells, and the wind had got up to 60 knots and was screaming through the rigging like a 747. I was absolutely terrified. It was the first time I'd ever been offshore without putting the anchor down overnight. So I'm rolling around in the bilges, praying, and suddenly the skipper throws open the hatch and says, "Get me the emergency tiller." So now I'm panicking and I'm throwing things around looking for the emergency tiller, and once I located it, I threw it into the cockpit and followed it out because I figured I may as well see what it looked like before I died. And as I got into the cockpit, we were reaching the top of one of these huge swells, and as I looked around, there were all these lights all around us. And I couldn't compute this because there shouldn't have been any lights out at sea. And the skipper could see my confusion. He said, "Fishing fleet." And then I realised what kind of a situation we were in. So it was a pitch black night. We had no steering, in a storm, in the middle of a fishing fleet. We obviously survived. By the next morning things had settled down and the fishing fleet had disappeared, and we were fine with the emergency tiller. And when we got to Gisborne and looked at what the problem was, it turned out to be that the skipper had thought that the steering quadrant has 3 little wheels on it which had nylon rope. He'd put nylon rope on those instead of steel cable, but he thought that the steel cable would wear those wheels out quicker, so he'd put nylon rope on, and it wasn't the first time, so this wasn't something that he didn't know about. So I was very angry because I'd been so terrified, and I really pointed the finger a lot. In the end, over years, I began to see some other things that I had missed. And the first was, it was a no gales forecast. This means that the Weather Bureau had not forecast the gale, and so we had gone out in all good faith in that. Maybe we should have been blaming them. The next thing was that we were in a storm. That was really difficult. Maybe it was the weather's problem. We should have been blaming the weather itself. The next thing was, we found ourselves in the middle of a fishing fleet. That had made it so dangerous. We wouldn't have been in quite so much trouble without steering if we hadn't also had to consider fishing boats that could appear right in front of us, because in seas that high you don't always see where they are. The next thing to consider was that I'd actually chosen to be on the boat. So maybe it was actually my fault. And as I went along, I began to realise that it's not quite so simple to point a finger accurately. And you might usefully think about this when you're wanting to blame, and look wider and look at your own part. Perhaps you had something to do with it that made it not quite all that person's fault. Think about it. We'll talk about it another time.